How psychological warfare tactics break soldiers without firing a shot. Modern militaries don't just fight with guns and bombs, they fight with minds. Psychological warfare is the art of targeting the human element of armed forces, using fear, deception, misinformation, social pressure, and media to break morale, disrupt cohesion, and collapse the enemy's will to fight without ever crossing a border or firing a single bullet. In World War II, Allied forces dropped 6 billion leaflets over Europe. In Korea, 1 billion leaflets contributed to 68% of Chinese and 68.5% of North Korean POWs, citing psychological materials as influencing their surrender decision. In the Korean War alone, over 1 billion leaflets were disseminated, and studies suggest that up to 68% of Chinese forces and 68.5% of North Korean prisoners of war who surrendered did so at least in part due to psychological leaflets and messaging demonstrating a substantive correlation between PSYOPs and willingness to give up. Fighting. War begins in the mind. War isn't just fought on battlefields, it begins in the human mind. Even the toughest soldier can be shaken if they start to doubt their cause, fear betrayal, feel isolated, or believe they are surrounded by lies and uncertainty. Psychological warfare exploits these vulnerabilities with precision. Today we explore how modern armies harness psychological tricks so powerful that they undermine entire units and nations' defenses, all without a bullet ever being shot. What is psychological warfare? Psychological warfare is the strategic use of propaganda, misinformation, deception, fear, and media to influence the perception and behavior of enemies and populations. It aims to demoralize, confuse, and break the will to fight. It's as old as war itself. Ancient leaders used myth, rumor, and spectacle to intimidate enemies, and those techniques persist today in far more sophisticated forms. Unlike physical weapons, psychological tactics attack confidence and perception, exploit fear and uncertainty, undermine trust and cohesion, weaken decision-making and morale. These tools can make soldiers and entire armies question their mission and their leadership long before battle lines are drawn. Propaganda, the silent shield breaker. One of the oldest and most effective tools of psychological warfare is propaganda, information designed to influence belief and emotion instead of causing physical damage. Mass propaganda campaigns have been used at scale in major conflicts. For example, during World War II, the Western Allies are estimated to have dropped approximately 5.9 billion to 6 billion leaflets over Europe alone. Many aimed directly at undermining enemy morale and prompting surrender. Propaganda can take many forms. Leaflets urging surrender. 9 million dropped over France in 2 days post-D-Day, targeting German morale. Black propaganda radio. Gustav Siegfriedin's broadcast fake German dissent, music, and demoralizing rumors undermining Wehrmacht trust. Fake news or rumor campaigns that undermine trust within ranks. Strategic messaging via media outlets or social networks. Allied surveys found 80% of German POWs had seen leaflets. Safe conduct passes were carried by surrendering soldiers, psychological tools that reduced combat resistance without force. These tactics aimed to undermine confidence and foster surrender by convincing soldiers that defeat was inevitable and resistance pointless. Leaflets often included safe conduct passes promising humane treatment for those who laid down arms, and many German defenders reportedly carried these with them when they surrendered, a psychological prod that reduced combat resistance. The logic is simple. A frightened or uncertain soldier is far less effective than a confident one, and when millions of messages reach troops relentlessly across a battlefield, the psychological toll compounds. Deception operations. Make the enemy see what you want. Deception is another cornerstone of psychological warfare, convincing the enemy that reality is something other than it is. One of the most brilliant examples is Operation Mincemeat in World War II. In 1943, British intelligence planted fake invasion documents on a corpse. Hitler diverted the 1st Panzer Division and additional forces from Sicily to Greece. Result: 150,000 Allied troops invaded Sicily on July 9, with 3,000 ships and 4,000 aircraft, facing weakened defenses due to one elaborate corpse deception. Another deception campaign, Operation Fortitude, convinced Adolf Hitler that the Allied invasion of Europe in 1944 would come at Pas de Calais. the narrowest crossing point from England to France, instead of Normandy. The Allies created the fictional 1st U.S. Army Group under Patton. Fake inflatable tanks, dummy landing craft, fabricated radio traffic. Germans believed 42 divisions threatened Pas-de-Calais. They held 15-19 divisions there for weeks post-D-Day. Forces desperately needed at Normandy. One fake army paralyzed real divisions through late July. These operations didn't just fool generals, they shattered confidence in their own intelligence, creating hesitation and misjudgment that altered the course of a massive war. Fear and intimidation, the psychological pressure. Psychological warfare thrives on fear, and fear doesn't need bullets to be powerful. It only needs perceived danger and uncertainty. Overwhelming presence. Strategies that project overwhelming power, like shock and awe, use rapid dominance and spectacular displays of force to paralyze the enemy's perception of control. The goal is to destroy an opponent's will to resist by making resistance seem pointless. Audio and sensory warfare. Even something as simple as sound can be weaponized. In Panama, U.S. forces blasted rock music continuously at Noriega's bunker. Psychological exhaustion contributing to his surrender after 10 days. Similarly, in Vietnam, U.S. forces used eerie ghost tapes like Operation Wandering Soul, recordings designed to prey on cultural superstitions about spirits, in hopes of scaring enemy fighters. These sensory tactics don't kill physically, but they wear down psychological endurance in ways traditional weapons never could. Disinformation and confusion. Modern psychological operations also rely on disinformation, deliberately false or misleading information, to disrupt enemy decision-making. Fake reports, false alerts, and contradictory messages make it impossible to know what's true, which breeds insecurity and hesitation. Pre-invasion Ukraine 2022, Russian Telegram mill bloggers showed 8,925% post increase and 5,352% manipulated image surge in 2 weeks before conflict. Information warfare preceding kinetic warfare. Confusion is a weapon. When soldiers cannot trust what they hear or read, they become less effective because every choice feels risky. This can lead to miscommunication within units, poor battlefield decisions, and erosion of trust in command structures. In the Ukraine conflict, researchers identified networks of at least 3,634 pro-Kremlin bots that posted over 316,000 hyper-localized disinformation messages on Telegram between early 2024 and 2025, systematically pushing narratives aimed at weakening morale and undermining resistance among Ukrainian populations and fighters. In the digital age, this becomes even more potent. Memetic warfare, the spread of manipulative memes and narratives on social media, can shape soldiers' and civilians' beliefs with astonishing speed and precision, amplified by AI-generated content. Recent analysis of pro-Russia disinformation campaigns using free AI tools found that between September 2024 and May 2025, at least 587 unique AI-generated false images and videos were pushed across social media platforms, driving millions of views before moderation intervened. Case examples that prove the power of the mind. Through history, psychological tactics have reshaped conflicts. World War II Allied Russes undermined German confidence and decision-making. Operation Wandering Soul exploited cultural beliefs to unsettle enemy fighters in Vietnam. Loud music PSYOPs in Panama pressured a dictator to surrender without violence. Modern memetic warfare in the Ukraine conflict shows how online narratives affect perception and morale on both sides. Gulf War. Coalition forces used broadcast transmissions and leaflets to convince Iraqi soldiers that resistance was pointless, encouraging mass surrenders even before engagements. Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The U.S. military disseminated leaflets and radio messages designed to encourage defections among insurgent forces and support among local populations, part of a broader hearts and minds strategy aimed at undermining opposition resolve. Syria and other conflicts. Government and opposition forces alike have used social media influence campaigns to recruit, intimidate, and shape narratives among local and international audiences. These examples show that even conventional conflicts rely heavily on psychological operations to weaken enemy resolve well before battlefield clashes. The mind is the first battlefield. The most damaging attacks are often those that never leave a trace. Whispered rumors, manipulated broadcasts, digital deception, disinformation campaigns, and constant psychological pressure. These psychological warfare tactics can undermine confidence, disrupt trust, fracture units, cause anxiety and indecision, erode fundamental belief in mission, all without firing a single shot. In the modern age, wars aren't just fought with guns and drones. They are fought in hearts, minds, and perceptions. The army that can break its enemy's will without bullets will always hold a devastating advantage. Subscribe to Warzone Masters for deep, fact-based analysis on psychological warfare, technology, and global conflict. Like this video, it helps more people see it. And comment below. Do you believe AI should ever be allowed to make life and death decisions in war? Your perspective matters. I'll see you in the next one.